Alright, hello guys. I'd like to continue working with the basic navigation, right? And also we'll look into some basic geometry, right? Developing basic geometry, and just a review, right? Talked about rotation, right? Our 3D models, right here, by holding right click and moving your cursor, right? And as you can see, we're using the same model, right, that was provided for you in Blackboard, right? So if you go ahead and open that, right, and you can follow along. And we talked about panning, right? Panning on your 3D view, right, by holding Shift, right, and then right click and drag while holding, right? Zoom in, right, scroll in and out. And remember about dynamic zoom, right? If you hold down Control key, right click, you drag in and out while holding, right? You get this dynamic zoom, right, which is very helpful, especially when you're trying to get some detail, right, or approach certain details, right? Your standard zooming in and out, which is scrolling, it's kind of in with gaps. I don't know if you see here, right? I mean, it's incremental, right? Versus the dynamic that is much smoother, right? So you're able to control it a little bit more. So I'm gonna zoom out. I like to talk about a little bit about the zoom, right? Remember, if you this button right here, zoom extends, right? But also, if you look at it on the, if you look at its additional option, which is with the right click, I'm sorry, right? This zoom extend in all viewports. It's very helpful. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and change all my viewports to shaded so that you can actually see it a little bit better. I'm gonna go ahead and zoom, right, just randomly in all of them. Right? Let's say sometimes you get to a point and you just want to make, you know, you ask yourself, right, what do I have, right? Let me see everything that I have everywhere, right? So I right click, right, under this icon right there. Sorry about that, guys. Elvis, very, very attentive to what's going on outside. But anyway, you right click on this button right there. Right, 4 default viewports, right? Oops, I'm sorry, not that one. Zoom extend all viewports, right? It brings you there, and it's a good default to go sometimes, right? And just keep track, keep an eye on everything that is going on in your drawing area. And remember, additionally, if you just want to zoom extends, just that selected export, right? When you do a left click on that selected viewport, right? I got asked this during question, right? Sometimes we lose, right? Let's say one of our viewports, right? Or things get a little bit, weird, right? With our viewports, right? There's this button right here, right? Where you can do your fold, and that was a right click for default viewports, and then it'll bring you back to that. All right. Additionally, additionally, right, if you're on a viewport, you can click this button right there with left, right, and it brings you to all your viewports. And additionally, you can do a zoom extend on all viewports, and you get that. I mean, it brings you back to seeing everything that you have in all your viewports. Now, I want to talk about these specific types of zoom, right, that you have as well that are very, very, very helpful when you're modeling, right? The first one, right, is this one right here. Let's say that I have that object right there and I want to zoom in to it, right, as big as my screen, right? You have this button right here, right? And if you look at it, it's a magnifying glass with the yellow circle inside of it, right? These two yellow bubbles. Remember, on Rhino, anytime that you see yellow, it means that something is highlighted, right? So then if I select an object, left click on this button right here, zoom selected, right? It zooms to the extent of such object. Now, what if I want to zoom into that object in all my viewports? Then I would do a right click, right, on this option right here, zoom selected in all viewports, right? Again, it's very, very helpful tool, right, whenever you start working with the multiple objects in one same drawing, right? Let's say that now I want to zoom into that object right there in all my viewports. Right click on this button right there, and it does that, and it nicely centers it for you, right? Any object, right? If you follow me along, uh, right click, and it assumes those extends, right? Because remember, you always want to be designing, drawing and designing, thinking in different elevations, right? Or thinking of all your different sides of your object, right? So it's very, very helpful tool to have, right? So that's zoom selected, right? Um, and there you go. Additionally, right, you have your zoom window, right? Which is this object right here, this icon, zoom window, which is with my left click, right? Which is also helpful, right? If I click on it and then I draw a window, let's say that right there, right? It zooms into that right there, right? And we click right there. Okay, so those options right there with the zooms right there are the additional tools that will help you navigate your models faster and eventually become a faster or more efficient 3D modeler. Let's call it that way, right? It's not always about speed, but it's about efficiency. Okay. Next, I'd like to go into some basic generation of geometry, right? And I guess we can use this same model since we're already here. Perhaps we can find some ways of incorporating this as we move along, right? But we're going to start looking into these icons right here, right? An option that is not perhaps talked about too much, but it's very helpful. It's to know about the points, right? A single point, right? If you go ahead and click on that option right there, right, and you drop a point. Now, if I do a right click on it, right, you see that I can do multiple points. And this later becomes helpful, right? There are certain tools, right, such as this one, for example, curve through points. If you right click on that option, right, select points to build curve through, right? Right click because I'm done. It does that, right? So later on, it becomes a very helpful tool. So remember, you can draw a single point right there with your left button right there, or multiple points with the right click, right? And then later on, this becomes actually very helpful. I'm actually going to leave those points right there just for reference. Let's see. Well, we can go through this right one by one. Again, polyline. Right, if you go ahead and polyline, you see that you start getting these linear segments. But as you go ahead and click, right, the command continues, right? Say that you're done drawing lines. How do we exit out of this? Well, three ways. Either you press your enter key, your space bar, or you right click and you exit out of the command. Right, now let's look into an additional segment of option, I'm sorry, of this tool or this icon. If you do a right click rather than polyline, you'll do align segments, right? Let's see how those works, right? So I click, 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 click. How do I exit? Again, right click, enter, or space bar. Right, so I'm going to press the space bar. Now let's look at the difference between these, right? So if I click on any of these segments of this, what looks like a continuous curve, you'll see that you get segments, right? You select the actual segments of this continuous curve, right? Or what it looks like a continuous curve. Versus if we click at the previous curve drawn with our polyline, we see that it's a continuous object, and this actually becomes key or important as you move further with your 3D modeling option and actually certain commands as well, right? So there's a difference between a polyline, right, or creating multiple line segments. The same goes with the command, right, line. Right? If you go ahead and type line, you see that it asks you for start of line, right? Go ahead and select that point right there, and then end of line, and what happens? The command is over, right? Automatically. Now, if you go ahead and type polyline, right? Enter. Start of point. I'm sorry. Start of polyline. All right. We pick a point. We click with our left button right there, and notice that even if I done or gone through the second point right there, the command's still active, and it will remain so again until we do three things, right? Actually four, and let me talk about this, right? Right click, spacebar, enter, right? Or escape. I just press escape. Now be very careful with that. It's actually one of the things that is very common as you are just learning this, is that you need to tell the command that you're done. Otherwise, the command thinks that you change your mind and you do not wish to continue with the command, right? So I'll repeat that. If I go ahead and so that please try it as well, right? If you type polyline and I click click, 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 click. Let's say I'm done, right? And you press escape, your object goes away. And this happens to all of us, right? And it can be sometimes frustrating, like, I just finished tracing this intricate or elaborate set of lines, and I press escape rather than enter, and your work will disappear. Okay, so I'll go ahead and repeat the action now in the right way, right? Polyline, enter, or spacebar in this case. Click, 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 click. I'm done. Spacebar. Now, how to repeat that last command? Remember, I can either, again, press enter, spacebar, or right click. If I hit my right click, right, I activate, again, my polyline, right click to exit. Okay, so that was it, both of options under this button right here. Next to it, you have your control point curve, right, which is very helpful as well, right? Now, what happens here? Well, you start getting your organic forms, right? This is all some sort of curved line, right? So right click and you get that. Now, if you go ahead and select it, you see that you get your points, right? And you can further edit this object. And actually, this goes for all objects, right? To get its nodes, right, or control points, right? And you can actually edit. And remember, again, if you're wondering what this little thing is, right, that I have here, right, and perhaps you don't have it, remember that's the gumball, and that gets turned on right here. I talked about this during class, but I did not mention it on the previous video, even though I was using it, but I brought it up during class. But again, remember, it's a super helpful tool, right? It's just the gumball. Make sure that it's sticking right there, and that appears. And again, it allows you to edit in a number of ways your objects. And I'm gonna do a full tutorial just on how to use it with 3D objects, and I'll talk about some additional options. But for right now, remember that you can move any of these points, right, and you actually update this geometry, right? And I'm moving those with my left button, right? So I first select the object, click on one of the curves on the control points right there, and move them. Okay. We talked about I talked about control point through curve through points, right? And again, if I right click on this icon right there, select points to build curve through, right? Notice as well that the order matters, okay? And it does just that right there. Select those points right there, right click, and you see how I got this turn right there, right? Because of the order of how I selected the objects. Right click, exit out of the command, right? You have your circle option right here. Go ahead and click on that, right? Notice that it specified or asked me first, right? Center of circle. Okay, center of circle, it's anywhere I first click, right? And after that, it's asking me for a radius, right? So that radius can be graphically defined, which is just by clicking anywhere right here on your screen. I'm going to right click to repeat that command, define its center right there, or I can actually enter distance, right? In this case, if you're using the file that I provided for you, your units should already be set up. So I can already, for example, right, enter a distance, right? Now, something to point out as well, if you look underneath right here, all right, I'm sorry, whoops, right there. Notice that as I move my cursor, I'm going to move my cursor back to that original point, but notice as I move my cursor in and out from such point, this number will update, right? So that means that right now I have, if you look at, again, this area right here, right now I have a circle of about 3 and 2 inches with 7/8. I keep moving this cursor out. I have a circle of 4, 11. Now it hasn't been drawn, right? Because I haven't pressed enter yet. However, it's a good reference to know, right, what approximate size you're working with, right? So let's say I want a circle about that size, somewhere about 9 feet, 7 inches, and 5/8. I'm just going to go ahead and press 10 feet, right? 1, 0, and then your, what is this, apostrophe, right? So that you actually specifies that is your 10 feet units, which is important, right? Because our units are set to feet, okay? And I have drawn, right, a circle with a radius of 10 feet, right? I can prove this to you, right? If I type distance, right, and measure from that end to this other end right there, it's 20 feet, okay? I'll talk about this drafting aids in a minute, right, that allowed me to snap to these points right there in a second, okay? I'm gonna exit to press escape to exit out of the command. So those are circles, right? You have your ellipse, which again, it's something that I have yet to extensively use, but it's there. Notice that again, it's asking me for a center first, right? So I click there. Now it's asking me for end of first axis. Let's say it's there. And then the end of a second axis, right? You can see what's happening right here, right? And that's what your ellipsoid looks like. And I click and I exit out of the command, right? So go ahead and try that. Go ahead and try drawing some circles, right? Now you'll see that very helpful as well. And talking about this secondary options once you activate a command, right? That right now I'm drawing a circle, right? Defining its radius, but I can actually define it by its diameter, right? So right now it's diameter, but if you go ahead and click under diameter, right? Notice that now this shows up and whatever number you enter, let's say I enter 10 feet again, right? Now it's actually the diameter and not the radius, such as in this case right here, right? So actually if I move this guy right here, right, from that point to that point, and I make a copy, right, enter, right, I should be able to fit 2 of these circles within that circle right there, right? Again, this being a 10 feet radius and this guy's being 10 feet diameter, right, which technically gives me a 20 feet diameter for this bigger, larger circle. Okay, so I won't be going through all of these options right here right now on any of these commands, right? All of these ones right here, but again, just keep an eye on them, right? And little by little, certain exercises or assignments or projects will call for them, or you will start, exploring them on your own. Um, very, very helpful tools. And again, remember, under each and every one of these tools, there are further commands to explore, okay, which is this little triangle right there, which is your menu, which is cascading menu of the command, okay. We have arcs, right? In this case, it's a center start angle arc, right? So it's asking me for the center of the arc, right? Start of the arc, it says right here, and then end point or angle, right? I can either, again, click, right? Or if I right click to repeat the last command, right? I can insert an angle. Let's say I want a 65-degree angle right there, okay? So very, very helpful tool. The arc command has a number of options right here. and additionally here, right? Particularly this one's right because sometimes the sort and type of information that we have in order to draw varies, right? So in this case, right, we start with the specify the center, then the start of the angle, and either the angle or the end of the arc. However, I can also do right all of this ones right here, start and point of arc, which actually they're very different. You get very different results from both of this, right? Again, I was just trying the second option right here with a left click, start and point on arc, right? So start and then a point in the arc right there, right? She's kind of like defining the belly of this guy right there, right? And that you see right there moving, that would be the center of the circle. Okay. From there, we move on to our rectangles, right? Where again, you click right the origin of the rectangle, and then you specify the next end or then the opposite corner of such rectangle. Now, I'm going to introduce this. Remember, for scaling your images, right? Very important when we're talking about Illustrator, holding down Shift. Well, on Rhino, the way that you draw right a perfect square, right, or I'm sorry about that, a square, which is a rectangle with equal length of sides, right? You do that by holding down Shift, right? So I have left go Shift, right, and that gives me any rectangular shape, right? As I move my cursor. Now, if I hold down Shift, notice that my rectangle gets constrained to an equilateral rectangle, right? Which is aka a square, right? Which again we do use this a lot. And again, multiple options that we have under that. Going down, we have our polygons, which are very helpful for a number of exercises, right? In this case, right, we can do a left click, right? And the first thing that it asks for is the center of the inscribed polygon, right? So if I click there, now now it's asking me for the corner of the polygon, but inside of this soft menu or secondary option of this command, notice that I have this option right here to set the number of sides that I want this polygon to be. Right now I have a four-sided polygon, which is a square or some sort of diamond right there. So I'm holding down Shift to constrain my cursor, right? I'm gonna go ahead and click there. Now I'm going to right click to repeat the command, and now I change the number of sides, right? Number of sides, I'm going to enter 5, enter, and guess what we'll get? I'll click, I hold Shift, and I get my pentagon. Yes. Go ahead and right click, change the number of sides to 6, enter, click, hold Shift. I'm just holding Shift to have it aligned right there, but you don't have to, right? I mean, just to practice with that, right? And we click, right click, repeat the command, number of sides. Now let's do, I don't know, 50 sided polygon, right? We specify the center and we move out, click, right? And of course it starts looking like a circle, right? But if you actually click on it, you'll see all of these nodes right there, it's the points that actually tell you that it's actually a segmented circle, meaning that from that point to that point, that's actually a straight segment. But again, just if you zoom out enough, it gives the illusion of a circle. Once you start zooming into it, right, you start seeing that it's a polygon, right? 50-sided polygon to be specific, right? And again, you can further edit any of these points right there to manipulate whatever forms you have, right? Just bear in mind that you are now redefining the size or length of each of the segments. So it goes from a a regular polygon to an irregular one, right? So it is still a pentagon or a pentagonal form, except that now it's an irregular pentagon, meaning that each of these sides right here have a different side, but still 5 segments or 6 segments in this case. Okay. And then, well, let's go ahead and keep playing with this, right? Because there's a number of setting of them, right? Such as, for example, right? In this case, let me use actually use these two circles right here. I'm gonna copy these two circles right here to the side. I'm going to move one a little bit to the right. I want us to look into one specific difference that again will become helpful at certain point, which is drawing a polygon, right? Uh, inscribe, right, versus circumscribe. Okay, and you can find that setting right here. So center of inscribed polygon, right? I'm gonna go ahead and snap to the center. If you do not get this drafting 8, which is the center, go ahead and turn on O snap right now. Make sure that it's sticking and that this option right here, center, is available. I'm gonna work on a specific video just on OSNAP and these drafting aids right here, but for right now, so you can follow along, make sure that OSNAP is on and the center is checked, right? And if you place your cursor somewhere around the edge of that circle, you see that CEN, that means that you can snap to its center. Now, I'm going to go ahead and change the number of sides to 5 so that we get a pentagon, right? And I'm going to snap, go ahead and make sure that perpendicular is on for you. And actually, as a matter of fact, let's do quadrants. Quadrants, where are quad. There we go, right? Make sure that you check that. Now, go ahead and select the upper quadrant right here. It's been difficult. It's there, right? But let's actually select the bottom one since I think actually so that we can avoid this, right? And I'll talk about this in a minute. Let's uncheck perpendicular if yours is like mine, so that the quad snap can overtake, right? So click there. Now that was, again, I'm going to right click to repeat the last command. That was an inscribed polygon with 5 sides. Now if you turn this into a circumscribe, right, and again I'm going to specify, remember this is the same circles, these two circles are the same size, right? I select again the center, and again I go to this bottom, I think we selected the bottom, right, quadrant of the circle, right? That you get a pentagon, of course, right? But you can see what the difference is, right? The inscribe option, right? See, when you're defining, when you draw these pentagons, right? It's either the length from the center to an end or point, or the center, right, of the polygon to one to the midpoint of one edge, right, which is a big difference right there. And you cannot really see it when you just draw the polygon, right? But if you look right now where my cursor is the midpoint, right, between both ends, right, of this polygon. Okay, I'm gonna right click to exit, versus if I select now circumscribe, select our center, and now where is my cursor? That's at one of the ends, right, of the polygons right there, right? So you can play with that, right? Go ahead and explore how those two differ. All right, guys. So I think that's a good introduction right now to working with basic geometry, in particular curves and points. I'm going to pause this and see what Elvis is up to out there, and I'll see you guys, or we'll meet in the next video. Okay, go ahead and try it. Go ahead and try to follow along and see how that goes. Okay, any questions, just let me know.